They get him to calm down and discuss the search for Grievous. They suspect he's in the Outer Rim and want Obi-Wan to contact their spies out there for any leads. What of the droid landing on Kashyyyk? I know that system well. It would take us little time to drive the droids off that planet. Skywalker, your assignment is here with the Chancellor. Kenobi must find Grievous. Not that Mace is wrong, but why did he bring up Kenobi and Grievous in relation to Kashyyyk? All that he suggested was, hey, I know that system and could probably deal with the problem. Obi-Wan wasn't even mentioned in that. Yoda, who apparently has good relations with the Wookiees, helps that Yoda is a firm Life Day traditionalist, will go instead. Later, the comic once again expands and slightly alters dialogue afterwards, as Anakin complains to Obi-Wan about not being declared a master despite being on the council. Obi-Wan points out that he put himself into a delicate situation by being so close to the Chancellor that he was asked to be his representative. And what's more, his frustration is not healthy for him, especially when he suggests that the Jedi Council are just upset because he's the youngest ever to be on it. Anakin, I worry when you speak of jealousy and pride. Those are not Jedi thoughts. They're dangerous, dark thoughts. Jedi high school must be weird. Obi-Wan says that they've approved his placement on the council because they want him to act as a spy on the Chancellor, report all his dealings to them. Anakin, of course, brings up that this is kind of treasonous, and what's more, he considers Palpatine a personal friend and mentor. Obi-Wan reminds him that his allegiance is to the Senate, not to its leader, one who has already stayed in office beyond his term limits. Use your feelings, Anakin. Something is out of place here. Oh, you mean those things you told him to be wary of? Good that you're being so consistent there, Kenobi. Later, Anakin confides in Padmé his same thoughts about the Council that he did to Obi-Wan, thinking that the Council fears his power. Sometimes I wonder what's happening to the Jedi Order. I think this war is destroying the principles of the Republic. You know, the principles of bureaucracy that kept the Senate from aiding the Naboo. Why can't we go back to the good old days, damn it? Padmé suggests that maybe the Republic itself is transforming into the evil they hate, but Anakin rejects that outright. She encourages him to try to talk to the Chancellor and push for peace, but Anakin's had enough of everyone trying to tell him what to do in regards to the Chancellor. Hold me, like you did by the lake on Naboo so long ago. Tell me again about how much you hate sand. So let's talk about Padmé for a second, because I've realized as I revisited these movies that she is the most consistently written character in the entire prequel trilogy. She's staunchly anti-war in all three films, with Phantom Menace establishing right away that she refuses to take any action that will lead to outright war, even in the face of invasion, thinking that the Republic and the Senate will solve the crisis without the need for it. She was against the formation of the army in Attack of the Clones, despite the growing threat of the Separatists, to the point of assassination attempts, and now in Revenge of the Sith, she's pushing every angle she can to try to end the war through peaceful means. However, despite this strong anti-war stance, that doesn't mean she's naive or a pacifist. She knows that when the chips are down, at some point you have to be willing to fight. We see that in Phantom Menace when she elects to ally with the Gungans with a military action. In Attack of the Clones, when it becomes clear that negotiation with the Separatists is impossible, she'll pick up a gun and help pursue Count Dooku to take him down. And now here, in the face of the Republic becoming totalitarian, she's working with others to start up a proper rebellion if things don't go the way she hopes they do. Padmé is strong, firm in her convictions, and ready to do whatever she has to secure a better future. I may make fun of the goofy queen outfits, the terrible romance dialogue, and the occasional flat delivery, but honestly, the character herself is really good when you actually stop and think about her. Like I said, it's a pity this movie does her such a disservice by excising some of her scenes. Anyway, later Anakin is summoned by Chancellor Palpatine to the opera he's watching. The comic doesn't show what the opera is, but the movie portrays some kind of weird Final Fantasy X blitzball bubble thing with creatures swimming between orbs of water. You know, Anakin, I was once the star player of the Zanarkandaves. Palpatine continues trying to sway Anakin to his way of thinking, knowing full well that the Jedi have asked him to spy for them. All those who gain power are afraid to lose it. Even the Jedi. The Jedi use their power for good. Good is a point of view, Anakin. For instance, some would say that this opera we're watching is good. Trust me, it is not. The Jedi point of view is not the only valid one. The Dark Lords of the Sith believe in security and justice also, yet they are considered by the Jedi to be evil. Yeah, but you don't see the Jedi trying to create as many doomsday weapons as the Sith, so I think one side is leaning more on the evil scale. Yet the Sith and the Jedi are similar in almost every way. including their quest for greater power. The difference between the two is that the Sith are not afraid of the dark side of the Force. That is why they are more powerful. Palpatine attempting to use the both sides mind trick. Anakin counters that the Sith rely on self-interest for their strength, whereas the Jedi are meant to be selfless. The fear of losing power is a weakness of both the Jedi and the Sith. You know, I joked about the opera being bad, but Palpatine summoned Anakin here to have a philosophical debate with him instead of watching it, so it can't be that good. And thus it's time for the scene that many cite as possibly the best of the entire prequel trilogy. Or at the very least, even if they hate the prequels, it's still one of the few good things to come out of it. Have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis? He thought you could treat midichlorians with antibiotics. It didn't go well. He was a Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful and wise he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life. Unfortunately, the only thing he created were bees that smelled like gasoline. He wasn't very good at it. He had such knowledge of the dark side that he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying. A fancy way of saying he was rich and could afford good health care. He could actually keep someone safe from death. He taught his apprentice everything he knew, and then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Plagueis never saw it coming. I noticed the comic omits that he was nicknamed Darth Plagueis the Wise. Good call there. He could save others from death, but not himself. Is it possible to learn this power? Not from a Jedi, although there are tutorials on WikiHow. The Darth Plagueis scene is dripping in atmosphere, and it's a nice change in tactics for manipulation. Anakin is beginning to teeter on the edge of the dark side as he feels like he's being pulled between Palpatine and the Jedi. So this scene shows a different, subtler approach to pushing Anakin after it seems like the Sith and the Jedi are the same thing approach seems to fall flat, reminding him of his fear of Padmé dying. It's also one of the few scenes in any Star Wars movies that we actually get any insight into the Sith beyond they're bad guys who use the dark side. It's not a lot, but it shows something. Bear in mind, the word Sith is never used in the original trilogy. This was the first real chance for the movies, which I remind you is pretty much the only thing the majority of viewers will ever watch, to get into the longtime opposite of the Jedi. It's not a lot, but anything is nice. I like that we're not certain if Palpatine was Plagueis' apprentice, or if this was just indeed a story he knew. Forget the expanded universe stuff that went into detail. Let this scene be as a movie where you're in Anakin's shoes and you're not quite sure about this stuff either. I also like that while it's implied that this may have been how Anakin was created, they don't confirm it. I don't like the Anakin as virgin birth thing. I'm pretty sure that was done just so they didn't need to have some family lineage about Luke's grandfather or anything. But implying some Dark Lord of the Sith created an artificial pregnancy in a random woman in the desert is detestable and icky on so many levels, especially in an all-ages franchise, and we really didn't need that as fact in the universe. And no, I don't care what some comic says about it. It's better if we don't know. The virgin birth thing is even more ridiculous because it turns Anakin from some tragic tale of a guy who was seduced by the dark side into the most super special awesomest, most important guy ever. But yeah, the Plagueis scene is arguably the best scene in any of the prequels. But unfortunately, while it is the best scene, it still has some problems. See, once again, Lucas's failures as a writer rear their ugly head. Just the signs that there weren't enough drafts, revisions, or script editors who looked at this and found the contradictions or confusing parts, or made him alter something so it would fit better with what he was saying. The tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise is not actually that big of a tragedy. The implication is it's a tragedy because of his overwhelming desire to keep the people around him from dying, but Palpatine doesn't say he was obsessed with keeping people from dying. Maybe he was just a smart guy who could extend life or rejuvenate it. That's not tragic, that's cool. Hell, we don't even know what keep the ones he cared about from dying actually means. Did his cousin get chopped in half and he kept them alive through sheer willpower? Does he have his best friend's head in a jar that he keeps alive? Or does he mean, like I suggested, that he could stop old age from killing them? There's a lot of wiggle room there. Mind you, the movie has one thing going for it that the comic, for whatever reason, left out.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to to be unnatural.
That implies the power is like necromancy or something, and it's creepy as all hell, but again, the vagueness doesn't help. But yeah, that's all the story is. A dude has a cool power, his apprentice learned it, and then killed him. That's not a tragedy, that's a Tuesday for the Sith. The other problem is, like so much else, the line delivery. Not during Palpatine's explanation of the legend itself, but right before it. Anakin's supposed to still be torn, but his reactions to things like Palpatine saying, "I think the Jedi are going to try to take over the Republic," elicits the same emotional response as if he just learned a TV show he liked got preempted by a half hour. It's not helped by Palpatine's own underplaying of the whole thing. Sure, of course he's not actually worried about any of this, but when you say the guys who can telekinetically lift the entire Senate chamber and crumple it like a piece of paper are gonna stage a coup, maybe you should express a little concern to keep up the act. I'll grant you that Anakin's not really thinking straight right now, which is why he probably doesn't pick up on the guy who he has been warned seems to be surrounded by the dark side is now openly talking about how he knows things about the dark side and all that, but it seems like he should be at least a little suspicious of this. After a scene not in the movie where Obi-Wan meets with Padmé and basically admits that he knows about their relationship and wants her to help Anakin any way she can, Obi-Wan is called away because they've located General Grievous and want him to go after him. He and Anakin say their farewells, with Anakin even admitting his own arrogance and frustration have been taken out on Obi-Wan unfairly. Obi-Wan says how proud he is of Anakin. "Goodbye, old friend. May the Force be with you. May the Force be with you." It's a good bit there to make sure that they have one last scene together as friends because they're supposed to be best friends and their relationship ends in tragedy. It helps justify Obi-Wan's comments from A New Hope.
And he was a good friend.
The problem is, for whatever reason, Lucas decided that this scene should be immediately followed up by one where Anakin is paranoid and moody about Obi-Wan for absolutely no reason. Seriously, after they say goodbye, boom, Anakin is with Padmé and he senses that Obi-Wan was there, and he's suddenly paranoid that Obi-Wan was there. If we had anything earlier to show why he'd be distrustful of Obi-Wan, like if he had overheard him talking to another Jedi and only heard his own name in a grim tone or something, maybe that'd justify his growing distrust, but instead it's just, wait, Obi-Wan was here talking to my girlfriend? Grrr! This conversation transitions to Anakin briefly being concerned about how despite being a Jedi, he's craving more power. "I have found a way to save you. I am becoming so powerful with my new knowledge of the Force, I will be able to keep you from dying." Yeah, this dialogue ain't in the movie, and rightfully so. Has it been weeks since the Opera House? Has Palpatine been training him in this new knowledge of the Force? Maybe we could see Palpatine doing that, or, like, Anakin hitting some books or something? Obi-Wan arrives on Utapau and learns from the locals that Grievous is indeed there with an army of thousands of battle droids. This is reported to the Council, who order Anakin to tell the Chancellor this, and his reaction will hopefully allow them to discern his true intentions. Obi-Wan, in the meantime, acquires a ride. "I need transportation. Get it for me." "You need transportation. I will get it for you." Following in his master's footsteps of stealing from locals. And thus he gets this giant feather iguana thing. "Boga. She answers to Boga. Good girl, Boga." I look forward to the comments about the extensive backstory that Boga has. So, major change from the movie to the comic here, and an improvement in my opinion. In the comic, Obi-Wan climbs up the side of a ridge and encounters Grievous alone and decides to take him on. In the movie, he sneaks above where Grievous is, surrounded by hundreds of battle droids, and just drops down.
Hello there.
This is stupid on so many levels, and I am baffled by it. The line itself feels like it's meant to be clever or something, like he's leading into a joke. You know, something like this.
"Excuse me, can you help me? I'm a spy."
But even if you ignore that, why in God's name would you drop down like that? I know I make fun of the efficacy of the battle droids, but make no mistake, that many should kill him. And they have no reason not to. Dooku was the one who wanted to turn Obi-Wan, not Grievous. They treat this like it's some personal, long-established rivalry between the two, and that's why Obi-Wan thinks he'll be fine. But if you only watch the movies, Grievous has only just appeared, and there is no history between these two. They have no reason to not just slaughter him on the spot. It's mind-boggling that this is happening at all, and the ensuing fight does not help. In the comic, it makes sense. He's alone, unguarded, he thinks he can handle this. But in the movie, after easily dispatching Grievous's guards, Grievous unveils his very cool trick, actually having 4 arms, each one with a lightsaber, and Obi-Wan grins. Grins! Each one of those lightsabers is from a Jedi who was killed by Grievous. Even if you ignore the coughing fits he has, Grievous is such an advanced cyborg that he can hide extra limbs and is incredibly dexterous and can move in the vacuum of space without difficulty. Even if the other battle droids weren't there aiming guns, Grievous is not someone Obi-Wan should feel confident about taking on single-handedly. And certainly not grin at the sight of 4 lightsabers wielded by this guy ready to slice him apart. Comic version, no facial reaction from him, just the really cool image of Grievous wielding those sabers while still wearing the cape. That's actually pretty damn badass. Attack, Kenobi! I have been trained in your Jedi arts by Count Dooku himself. Behold, Jedi, the power of the windmill! I'm not even kidding. In the movie, he has 2 of his arms rapidly spinning the blades like a fan, and then stops for some reason. Anyway, in the ensuing fight, he cuts off 2 of Grievous's hands and then destroys his remaining lightsabers. In the struggle, Obi-Wan's lightsaber is lost, but he grabs a nearby gun and uses it to shoot Grievous dead.
Obi-Gun Kenobi!
The comic also leaves out the bizarre moment where we get a close-up shot of Grievous's and Obi-Wan's eyes, as if this was really intense and he's all, "You're doomed, Jedi!" And Obi-Wan's cunning retort,
Oh, I don't think so.
God, it's like placeholder dialogue that he never got around to thinking of something better to put in. That's a recurring thing that's so irritating about these movies. It feels like dialogue is written with a particular plot development in mind, but then George Lucas decided to go in a different direction and then never bothered to go back and change the lines to match with how things progressed. That's why oftentimes the writing feels like a first draft, hence stuff like, "I sense a trap," and then they're not actually being a trap. It's the same way with this dialogue that seems like they're leading into a quip or a badass action movie one-liner, and instead we get, "Oh, I don't think so." Hell, remember last time with Sifo Dyas? As people were so keen to inform me, it was originally supposed to be Sido Dyas, which is a corruption of Sidious, to hint that it was an actual person. But there was a typo, and he decided, "Yeah, that's a cool name for a Jedi. I'm just gonna make him a new character." And then never explain anything about who the hell Sifo Dyas is in the movie! Palpatine is informed of all this, and he starts pushing Anakin again. "Anakin, you must break through the fog of lies the Jedi have created around you. Let me help you learn the true ways of the Force." Chancellor, how do you know the ways of the Force? Wait, only now are you asking that? You were just spewing bullcrap to Padmé, weren't you? Your new knowledge of the Force was you just Googling dark side powers for keeping people from dying, wasn't it? Palpatine admits that his mentor taught him everything about the Force, including the nature of the dark side. A few stray neurons finally fire in Anakin's head. You're a Sith Lord! Actually, I'm genuinely curious now. For those of you who were little kids and saw the prequels as your first Star Wars movies, were you actually surprised by this revelation? Like with other scenes, the dialogue has been rearranged a bit. In the movie, it's Palpatine admitting that he knows about Anakin's dreams about Padmé that gets Anakin to realize he's Sidious, whereas here, it's that he knows about the dark side. I'm pretty sure in the movie this was not intentional on Palpatine's part, that he just realized that he probably pushed too far, too early, and just decided to go all in at that point. In the comic, he pushes Anakin's buttons about his distrust of the Jedi, making a little speech about how much he fears that they'll destroy him, and that his only chance to defend himself and save Padmé is to learn to control the dark side. Anakin leaves, intending to turn him into the Jedi Council, but of course Palpatine is acting all civil and reasonable. He informs Mace Windu of this, and he takes some Jedi over to confront the Chancellor, ordering Anakin to stay put and meditate, since it's clear he's full of internal conflict. Mace and 3 other Jedi arrive to inform the Chancellor that Grievous is dead and that the war is over. However, they say that they're here to arrest him, and thus we get to Palpatine pulling out a red lightsaber and fighting them. Like with Yoda last time, I am not fond of Palpatine leaping around and wielding a lightsaber. At least with Yoda, even if you ignore the philosophical implications of him fighting with one, it's kinda cool to see him so acrobatic and dexterous and whatnot. Not so much with Palpatine. He's wearing this incredibly bulky outfit, and yet he's spinning around in the air and somehow moving so fast as to kill 3 of them so quickly, and it just looks absolutely ridiculous. It also doesn't help that, yet again, for all the bluster about these dark, evil powers and abilities and mastery of the Force and stuff, it just comes down to some old dude waving around a laser sword. The comic at least cuts down the length of it, and since it's just motion lines, it doesn't look as silly. It's still a little silly, admittedly. It also helps that it didn't include a few lines that have become mimetic.
I am the Senate. It's treason, then. No. 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 You will die!
Anakin, deeply worried about Padmé's potential fate, arrives to find Mace and Palpatine engaged in battle, with Palpatine finally unleashing the lightning. Anakin, he's a traitor! He'll betray you just as he betrayed me! Yeah, that might hold a little more water if you hadn't already admitted to being the Dark Lord of the Sith who started the war and is literally shooting lightning out of your hands! You're not one of them, Anakin! Unlimited power, Anakin! Help me! Yeah, another meme line that doesn't really translate to the comic. And for both movie and comic, why did he even yell that? Also, the comic doesn't show the lightning being reflected back at Palpatine, so he just shifts to melty grandpa face for no reason. Mace wants to press the attack and finally kill him, but Anakin insists he has to be kept alive. Movie did it better because he at least shouted that he needs him, but either way, the result is the same. Mace Windu disarmed and thrown out a window. What have I done? That line should not have been in the comic or movie, in my opinion. Even after this, he's still conflicted, which will lead into my larger issue in a minute. At this point, he should be committed, but even now, he's portrayed as uncertain and just as confused as he was a few scenes ago, as if nothing has changed. Palpatine says they can now bring order to the galaxy and save Padmé's life if he becomes his apprentice. I want the power to stop death. Yeah, I'm betting Mace Windu would appreciate that power right now if he wasn't an overcooked pancake. You were right. The Jedi betrayed both of us. I pledge myself to the ways of the Sith. How did the Jedi betray you exactly? Anakin Skywalker, you are one with the Order of the Sith Lords. Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Vader. Go to the Jedi Temple. Do what must be done, Lord Vader. Show no mercy. Then go to the Mustafar system. Wipe out the Separatist leaders. And once more the Sith will rule the galaxy. And we shall have peace. Fat chance of that, Palpatine. I mean, this franchise ain't called Star Peace. So, yeah. This doesn't work. It really doesn't. I saw this in theaters in 2005. Age 17, last day of high school, in fact. My family went out to see it that night, and even as I watched it, I thought he turned too easily. 15 years later, now that I'm older and have again revisited these and thought more about it, considered all these alternate ways they could have done this story, I think I figured out exactly what the problem is. It's not that Anakin's fall to the dark side is unconvincing, it's that he's not there yet. These last 2 movies do a good job of putting him on that path, but it's still a huge leap from I have some fascistic tendencies and am conflicted because of my dreams to I will murder not only innocent children but people I've known almost all my life. He's getting there, but he's not there yet. We needed more early red flags, like him feeling less conflicted about killing Dooku. Maybe Obi-Wan being the one to say, that was wrong, but Anakin saying, why, he was our enemy. That sort of thing. Even him killing the Tusken Raiders, where he did explicitly kill children, he's disgusted with himself afterwards for it. He's so guilty and confused and recognizing that these are bad things. And that was a fit of rage from his mother getting killed. You can't even use that same excuse for what happens later with him killing the kids in the temple. It comes across like every step he takes towards the dark side, he quickly starts backing up again. The movies needed him to be a good guy because it's a story about the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker turning to the dark side. But the movies have been so worried about about him not coming across as a good person that they forget he needs to become a bad person. There's no turning point where that happens. Even after killing Mace Windu, he's all, "What have I done?" Even now, he's conflicted. He went from running down a path to pole vaulting to the end of it. Another thing that would have worked? In the comic here, he says that the Jedi betrayed him too. Maybe instead of Anakin slicing off Mace's hands, how about Mace, in his anger, turns his lightsaber on Anakin, and he instinctively brings his saber up to defend himself. Mace realizes his own mistake and starts saying an apology, but the opening is enough for Sidious to blast him out a window. Anakin thinks the Jedi just betrayed him, and that's what makes him turn. Or hell, maybe Mace is actually that enraged, and Anakin tries to stop him, and Mace is all, "You're as bad as him, Skywalker! I'll stop you too!" And that solidifies his belief that the Jedi were planning to betray him. But this is too quick. He's suddenly all aboard the dark side train. Hell, he doesn't even embrace the dark side. He's just willing to do whatever Palpatine says. That's not being seduced by the dark side. It's just blackmail.
And hey, how about that nutty Star Wars bar? Can you forget all the creatures in there?